So, obviously there are tons of, social media projects going on. It's kind of interesting. I actually made a first attempt at Evolver like 4 years ago, and that had fallen by the wayside for various reasons. But this one we have up and going, and because we had limited funds. Like when you're trying to do something that sort of challenges the kind of underlying paradigm and structure of capitalism, it's extremely difficult to raise money for such an endeavor. But we have raised some funds. But the social network in its current form is, I would say, straightforward, fairly rudimentary. It's using Drupal, which is an open source content management platform. We hope that we can improve our business model, to a certain extent, and then do another raise to really do a much more sophisticated technological platform. Part of my whole thinking around this, like I'm interested in the Hermetic tradition and shamanism and alchemy, and I really like in alchemy they talk about taking poisons and turning them into medicines. And if we were to think about the greatest poison on the planet in the last couple of centuries has been the corporation. In its incredible efficiency, in its ability to organize people into structures and move resources of incredible impact. So if alchemically, if that's the greatest poison, there should be a medicine there also. So the idea is, can you take that structure of the corporation and take the positive aspects of efficiency that it has, but then transform it? And for various reasons, I personally think that nonprofits are not very effective. I heard somebody at Pioneers talking about how, like, something like Sierra Club, you go to their, funding department, you drill down into what they're, because they've got investments. Those investments are then leading to them getting a dividend, which operates the nonprofit. And then often, if you drill down into where those investments are going, it's like Exxon or something, So they're supporting the same, kind of corporate machinery that's devouring the planet. Similarly, I don't like the idea of charity. I don't think that that makes sense. That somebody would do something, and make a huge amount of money doing something where they feel, vaguely guilty, or they haven't done something right, so then they have to do a huge charity and give it away. Well, why not do the right thing from the beginning? I don't know. Just as obvious to me. So we're really interested in how we can do a transformative company, with a sustainable business model, the most interesting aspect of Evolver so far has been creating an offline network that we're calling Evolver Spores. We had Paul Stamets in the 2012 trailer, and he's brilliant about mycelia and how so I love the idea of spores, them just kind of landing and then popping up into little mycelial networks, So we at the moment have, like, I think 30 spores in the U.S. and internationally, we're really trying to create a model of sort of loose scaffolding, because there's, I think, like, a very interesting aspect of this time, is the self-organizing nature, of what's developing through the internet. Like the open source software movement, that in a way those old hierarchical top-down models are beginning to misfunction. And we can see that basically, the corporate structure itself is in a kind of meltdown. Whether it's the media companies or the Hollywood studios, the music industry, the banking industry, obviously, and I think this is all a really good sign, actually. I think that what actually is going on is a kind of evolution of consciousness, where those emergent those hierarchical old institutional frameworks are no longer acceptable or appropriate, and so what's emerging in their place are holarchic, open source structures. So we're trying to provide, but also, you notice that generally you see that it's easier for people to get involved with something that already is kind of going than to create something for themselves. So we're trying to create enough of a loose scaffolding so that people can plug in their enthusiasm and energy and then build, local networks. Thank you very much. One model for this is Transition Town. People looked at Transition Town?
Yeah.
Transition Town, I think, is a great, it's a really awesome model. Brilliant, actually. It's a permaculture-based social organizing model. Basically the idea is how do you get people together in communities to actually face peak oil, climate change, the increasing disruptions that are possible, but also be kind of positive about it. And so their whole thing is like, well, look, let's say there's less energy available, then we'll have stronger local communities. We'll relearn the skills that we forfeited through the industrialization of the last couple of centuries. And once again, here we have the internet could be an incredible mechanism for retraining people, for all sorts of skills that we forfeit, from cobbling to whatever we need, permaculture. Foraging, yeah. So I think there's like, one problem. I mean, first of all, we have a culture that's creates incredible distraction and anxiety, and most people are too caught up in distraction and anxiety to really think about the future. But I think everybody, intuitively knows that the system that we're in is highly unsustainable. And increasingly so. And ultimately, if something is highly unsustainable, at a certain point it breaks down. So I think we're already seeing aspects of that, and we're probably, there's many people here. I mean, how many people think that the economic crisis, that the stock's going up and it's all going to be okay now, in the next few years? Right? I mean, what they've basically done is they created a huge amount of imaginary money. Through the central banks and the Federal Reserves, and then they handed it out to the same corrupt, financial speculators who were responsible for deregulating the whole system. And at the moment, there's still a giant, sucking, funneling of resources, from poor people, from indigenous communities, even now from middle class people, to a tiny echelon of the financial elite. And that's not sustainable. I mean, 400 billionaires controlling more wealth than 2/3 of the world's population. That's not sustainable. And it's not. People are not going to let that continue. I mean, I personally, tend to think that we're going to go through, very intense global insurrections in the next few years. Maybe even, a global revolution. I think we're already seeing foreshadowings of that around the world, in France and Turkey and other countries. And the problem. I mean, I think that certainly may be necessary to a certain extent. The problem with that is it's not going to do any good unless there's a alternative, holistic paradigm in place, so that people have something to move into. And that has to be developed and kind of crystallized, fairly rapidly. And that's what we're kind of trying to do in our 2012 film is provide like a solution-oriented approach.